Hey everyone, this is Chris Martinez and Zach Fritz. We are the Automotive Informants. We're going to discuss some current events today, what we are seeing in the market, how you can improve your business today, not overreact, and see how you can play in the game and in the space today and help you sell more cars and do more with your business. So, Zach, there's been quite a bit of I don't know how to nicely say it. There's been some commotion in the business here just recently, and one of the things, and we can just jump right into it, is the FTC. What do you think about the FTC getting onto dealers today?
It's an interesting one. I mean, when it comes to dealers listing prices that they're not including out all of their added on fees or whatever they're going to try to upsell you at the dealership or tack on there, it does lack a good bit of transparency. And it's just funny to me the FTC goes after dealerships, but they don't apply this to other industries. So a little bit of irony there.
Well, I think here's the thing, right? You get the people that complain the most, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? And if you got people that are complaining, I mean, it's for good reason. There are some dealers that have these huge addendums that they won't tell you they've got a huge addendum until you get there, and their only workaround is to say, hey, look, dealer adds extra, but they don't tell you it's $4,000, or $5,000 or whatever it is, right? So those are the kind of things that I feel like, you know if you're going to advertise that, just do it up front that way, because why you're hiding it, because that when they do find out, they may not even stop at your store. They're going to come and they're going to go to some other store. So I do think there's a reason for it, but you know that's my take on it. And I think when you look at dealers that exclude those things, I think it's important that if you're confident about it, you understand the value. Why not just show it from day one?
Right. I mean, they might even improve their car edge transparency score.
Yes, the transparency score. That's a big
Yeah.
deal. But I do think that if you're going to do it for automotive, you better do it for everybody else, because I'll tell you, my wife, every time she goes to Target or some other retail establishment, she goes to the actual website, and everybody's got a price higher on in the store than they do online. If you're going to do it for automotive, do it for everybody. She'll go to Target, scan a price that's in the store, and it's higher than what it was online. And I mean, it happens every day.
Yeah, I always get anxious about those conversations with my wife when we'll go up to the register and she's like, "Can you price match this? I found this online." And I'm like, looking around awkwardly. I'm like, "Dang it." But I mean, it's true. Don't say something
Yeah.
is one price and then charge more once you're there and stuck. That's
Well,
not
I
fair.
even tell you, like, even Best Buy, I bought a laptop recently, and I found a price cheaper, and it was from the manufacturer. And but I wanted the laptop that day because my computer was smoky after the fire. And so I go and get the laptop, and sure enough, it's like $500 cheaper online. And I told Best Buy, you guys price match, right? And they go, well, not if it's from the OEM. And I was like, what do you mean if it's not? So needless to say, I spent the extra money because I needed the laptop right then and there. And but there's cheaper prices online, 100%.
And I think that might be part of kind of the consumer trap or even the dealership trap to apply to this situation where it becomes a sense of need or urgency once they're in there in that dealership. It's harder to then leave and say, well, let me go shop around somewhere else, waste more time, waste more fuel, or maybe they've already traded something in and gone through the process and had their credit ran.
Yeah,
Maybe
and you
that's
know what's
really
funny, but it's a big deal. I'll tell you, I just recently commented on this post on Instagram about that same type of thing, and let me just kind of give you an idea what some of these people were saying. And so this guy, he's a broker for a living. He charges customers $1,000 a transaction, and he goes and negotiates your car deal for you, right?
okay.
And he posted up some other dealer commenting on social media saying, hey, look, if you're paying these guys $1,000, shit, just pay me $1,000, and I'll make sure let me make $1,000 profit, and I'll sell you my car today, right? And so then the guy makes another video on that guy's video and says, if the dealer business model is trash, and he's just bashing it and talking about how car dealers are all criminals. And so I commented on that. I couldn't let that go, right? And so I said, look, it's really two things. First, most dealers are upfront and will give you pricing over the phone. Like any industry, there are a few bad actors, but they're not the majority. And then second, there are people who keep the narrative alive to scare customers into paying them to negotiate the deal instead. And so then I got a lot of customers or people commenting on what I said, and basically said, he goes, dude, just because you work in it doesn't mean you're buying them. LL, go watch a live stream. And then he starts talking about, I'm living in a fairy tale. And then this other guy, I spent a week calling every dealership within 200 miles for a specific thing. And what I told that guy, I said, look, I get it. Most dealers, some dealers may not give you a price like that just because it took you 200 dealers to get the price you wanted, because really it wasn't really the best price. It was probably the dealer that needed to hit a number, and he finally decided to lose all the money. Just like, dealers are there to make money, right? But
Right.
yes, you can go and spend hours and email and text 200 stores to get you a better price, because some dealers may just want your business enough, or they're going to lose money. And that's real. That's not really the best price. It's just that dealer was willing to lose money, and that's why we're able to get that price.
I think it's the broker argument in general. If they're going to charge $1,000 to negotiate a transaction, then in my mind, they need to provide $1,000 worth of value or discount on that car. Like, that's where their money needs to be made. But at the same time, there's YouTubers who will go out and they will live stream every transaction they do, and obviously piss off dealerships. I mean, if I'm a dealership and I've got brokers calling me, hey, what's your best price? What's your best price? Like, no BS, transparency score, car edge, all that stuff, I'm not going to work as hard as I possibly could to give you some great grand price when all you're going to do is go window shop it down the street to all my competitors. That's not fair. Versus if a customer's there in person, we can have an actual rapport and a conversation and everybody feels serious. Okay, great. Like, it's just like selling a house and somebody not coming up for a showing. Like, it blows my mind that people get upset about dealerships saying, hey, why don't you come on in, we'll run your credit, figure out what we can do, maybe I can show you some models, adjust options and trim levels to fit what you need. It's not always a scam, but then you get people who want to hype it up and throw all these rage bait and fear tactics out there and say, oh, you need a broker. They're just as bad as the crappy dealers.
Yeah.
So,
no, I agree. I think I do think it is something that needs to be done, because some people just take complete advantage of the situation and try to play the shuffle game with the price. But the problem is you get a few bad actors that change the game for everybody, and it's just only to help you. It's only going to get the dealer better, right? Like, if everyone has to play on the same rules, then so be it. But that whole addendum thing, that's a big deal for sure. We have another current event that just came up, and kind of tying into transparency, is the disposable engines. So this one caught me because it was in a forum and had a lot of responses, a lot of engagement. And then I posted on LinkedIn, and we got a lot of conversation around it, right? And what they basically said was, is GM becoming the American version of Hyundai? And what they meant by that is because right now on their TSB, which is their site that basically tells you like disclaimers of things that happen to vehicles that are common. What do they say, that what's the term mechanics or technicians use? It's
and obsolescence.
it's characteristic of the vehicle. That's just the characteristic of the vehicle. I like that term every time I hear it. But what they're saying is, if every 2,000 miles that you drive, you may need a quart of oil. What are your thoughts?
Volkswagen and Audi. GM is one that really frustrates me because GM introduced, and this oil thing is a little bit different than some of the AFM problems they were having with lifters collapsing and not popping back up for that V8 to 4-cylinder mode. They've had issues with it. There have been multiple class action lawsuits, and they haven't come up with a solution. Instead, it's just, hey, let's scrap everything. Interestingly enough, their new engines are completely redesigned, so I'm excited about that. But to just come out and say, oh, well, it's fine, you're going to burn a quart of oil every 2,000 miles. Okay, let's pretend it's a V8, because it's probably the highest amount of oil capacity. So it's a 5.3. My truck takes 6 quarts, I think, of oil. 2,000 miles, let's say it's a 10,000 mile oil change interval, you're going to burn 5 quarts of oil if you're not adding it?
Yeah, that's crazy. It reminds me like those cars back in the day, right? Like I remember, man, I must have had, I forget what kind of car it was. Maybe a Geo Prism. I don't remember. It was, I remember having a like, it seemed like every day I had to go buy a quart of oil or something. Or my mom's car. She had this old, I don't know if it was a Cutlass Supreme. I don't remember. It was some old school car. I remember just always having to put a quarter of oil in that thing, and I just remember thinking, "Dang, this is crazy."
People knew how to do that back then. Like, have you ever read like a Ford Model A or Model T service manual or like owner's manual? It's incredible, and if you haven't, I'll send mine to you, and you can go through it. But it talks about cleaning out the distributor and taking stuff apart and priming it and choking it in cold weather. It's incredible that the people these days, they don't know how to do any of that, let alone add oil. I mean, why do you think that Volkswagens and Audis and even some Mercedes now don't even have dipsticks? Because the manufacturer does not want them touching the car or adding any oil or fluids or doing anything to it because they will screw it up.
Well, I think it's twofold, right? Like you don't know how to change the battery on an iPhone, right? Like there's things that technology has gotten to a point now where it's just you just want it to work and that's it, right? Like it's there's no need to do those things. The cars are lasting longer than they have ever before. People are hanging on to cars more, and for good reason, because prices are just outrageous, right? But the idea when I look at this forum, and one of the comments that got the biggest attention was this one lady. She actually said, short version, they are building throwaway cars to keep you buying new. It's all junk. That's added tech just lets them track your every movement. I all junk, and I just responded. I don't think I wouldn't say it's all junk because I do think like certain brands do a really good job of there's some brands that I've worked for that you basically just need to change the oil and that thing will last forever, right? They're almost bulletproof in my mind. But then but I can see where she came from because she basically said, look, I've been doing this 39 years, and she said on cars when all we had was computer command control and the pre-OBD, and she had her first scanner in 1991. And so 39 years of just seeing you're in service and you're only focused on that, I can see that because she sees all of the bad, right? But to say they're all junk, that's the only thing I was like, well, I wouldn't say all of them because there are some brands that, most of the time, if you just change the oil, you're good.
Yeah. It's tough because we've just seen cars become more complex, so there's more to go wrong. And I think that's an important perspective to have on it as opposed to being in the industry for almost 40 years. What has changed over the course of 40 years, right? What's been introduced? We're now monitoring further and, it's a multitude of things. But then to look at it on the other side of the coin, GM being as smart as they are, you would think would probably say, well, we've got a system that works, we should stick with that. It almost makes you wonder, is this a Nissan Cummins situation where they plan for it to fail at a certain point so that it has to be replaced? Planned obsolescence.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. And I don't disagree to a certain extent. Like, Ford back in the day, they were purposely, making sure that there was planned obsolescence, right? Like there was just that you knew it was going to happen. Like it was important to do that because then you could buy a new car, right? Same thing with Apple. Apple got crushed on the fact that their batteries, for whatever reason, would go out, coincidentally every year, right? So then now you needed to change your phone, right?
And
So
yeah, now we don't even complain about it anymore. We just swap out iPhones or whatever every, like, I think I go every 3 years. I'm like, okay, time for a new phone.
yeah,
And it just is what it is.
it is what it is. I get it. I think that there's challenge there for sure. I don't know what the right thing to do there is, other outside of, just make sure you take care of your customers. And you can't it's a lot easier when the manufacturer stands behind it, but when your manufacturer is not standing behind it, that's the challenge for dealers, right? Because then you're the one, with the relationship that you could potentially ruin, because now they're looking at you because you sold it to them. All right. So,
And especially whenever we, the people, all technically own a share of it.
that's a different, I'll have to look at that one because I don't know. We still own a piece of that, or does the government still own a piece of that? I thought they paid off their bill. I know Tesla paid off their bill.
Yeah, I don't think you ever pay off that bill, but sure.
Well, we're going to the next one. The next one, I saw this post, and this one just made me mad, right? So this guy, he's from Good Financial Sense, and he has a lot of good content. Don't get me wrong. And the only thing that really made me mad, because I think it's clickbait or rage bait, right? That's a new thing. People like that get that rage bait, and they want to just get you upset, right? And this is the title. It said 37.99% interest on a car is insane. Approved. It says approved in a Charger, 5,400 down, no credit check. And the dealership ad shows a buyer putting 5,400 down at 37.99% interest with 72 monthly payments of $897 a month. So you think about it, and this guy, I'm thinking $900 payment for 72 months, 5,400 down. And the guy's he has got a tatted up face with his family. But what I didn't like about it is when the commentator said dealers love that game because once your brain locks onto I can make the payment, the rest of the math gets shoved into the trunk. And that bothered me for obvious reasons. And the reason why is because the banks are the one that dictate the terms. Dealer just presents it, and more than likely, if that was a real deal, which I don't think it was real, I think it was clickbait or rage bait.
Yeah.
Then do you really think that dealer didn't have to pay a fee for that? More than likely, there was a big old fee for that to go that long term. And there was another the same guy posted another one right after that the next day, and he basically said that the customer got approved with $500 down for a 120-month loan on a first-time buyer. First of all, there's no bank that's going to do a first-time buyer, zero credit score for 120 months, let alone a 2019 Mercedes. You know what I'm saying? So I just think he's
So much
talking
is wrong
about
with
these
that.
guys on TikTok. So these guys on TikTok are basically just doing this, as joking and just throwing it up there to try to get people to, go see them. And in reality, it's not real. Like there's just no way 120-month loan. I call BS. What do you think?
I mean, it's twofold, right? Because as a automotive YouTuber myself, I love rage baiting sometimes. It's really entertaining. And I will purposely throw stuff in my videos where it does rage bait people and they get super mad and upset, and it drives comments and it drives the algorithm, right? You get views and, make money, and it's cool. However, I do think on the other hand, I've seen it recently in the circles that I run with on YouTube. People are actually starting to pull some of this, clickbait, rage bait out because it's being called out so often. But I think on the other hand, it also might be desensitizing people to that, where they see, 2019 Mercedes, 120-month loan, first time buyer. I mean, at some point, if that is repeated often enough, people might just start saying, "Oh, that's normal," and That's a dangerous place to be.
Prices have gone through the roof. Don't get me wrong. And I get why extended term has made a big, impact in a lot of loans. I mean, I've never seen more 84-month terms. People are like desensitized to the longer term now. And I remember 60 months felt like eternity. Then it was 72 months. Everybody was just doing 72 months. And then they've came up with 84-month loans. And now everybody's doing 84-month loans. And before you know it, I mean, these cars have to last that long because, I mean, 84-month loans, I mean, you'll never get out of that car. Right. And then now some of these lenders are doing 90-month loans, and supposedly this buy here, pay here a lot's doing 120-month loans. So it's interesting.
It does. It's at what point do you. I mean, for me, a vehicle only makes sense if I can pay the car off and still have the car be. And it goes back to that negative equity conversation we had where you're banking on that duration of the loan, regardless of just burning money on interest, right? You're banking on that car lasting that long. So if that car doesn't last that long and you don't have the capital to come out of pocket or a warranty to say, hey, we're going to fix it and it's going to continue to go that long, well, now you're short. You still got to pay that loan off or roll it into another vehicle. And I think maybe that's part of this negative equity trap that we've seen.
Well, it's definitely caused friction in used car market, right? Like the used car market, Fox just recently announced that used car market's tight, and for good reason. They sold 2 years ago. They didn't sell that many new cars. It used to be the SAR was 17 million or something like that. Then now it's like 15 million. So when you sell less new cars, you have less opportunities, less leases. Leases have almost gone away because the rates and incentives haven't really been there.
Yeah.
So you really need to, dial in your game plan for sure.
It's interesting to me because I think we are seeing these longer loan terms pushed out. And so by default, you're going to have a cheaper monthly payment. So at a certain point, new cars almost become competitive with used cars for a payment term because think of a CAF, right? CAF, to my knowledge, I think, well, actually, they may have an 84-month option now, but the farthest I've ever seen is 72.
Hey, just so the traditional dealers understand, what is CAF, sir?
CarMax Auto Finance.
Oh, okay. You're talking about CarMax Auto Finance. That's
Yeah.
good stuff,
Yeah.
sir. So yeah,
they can only push out.
That's CarMax's prime lender, right? But they also do subprime as well. But it's primarily, they try to cherry pick the good credit customers, right?
Yeah, no, they do.
But 84-month loans, I'll tell you, Mercedes-Benz this year, they cut off dealers from doing 84-month terms. They would only do 72 months sometimes. They were pushing everybody that bought a Mercedes for 60 months and really trying to get them to do leasing because they were losing big money. I mean, it was like a real deal. Like they were losing money on these loans, repos, all-time high, things like that. And so they were the first time I'd ever seen a captive tell me, hey, if you need to, get the customer finance somewhere else, so be it. Instead of send me all your paper. You know what I'm saying? That was a real deal. Like back end, you couldn't get back end on those long terms or 72 months, and then 84 months was basically non-existent. They just didn't do it anymore.
Yeah, and for me, I'm seeing a lot less dealer financing. I'm seeing like a lot of out of house, small credit unions and pop up companies and online financiers come to the table and start writing these loans. And it's honestly kind of baffling what you can get approved for these days. Well, if I was not responsible, I could get in a lot of trouble.
Well, it got, a couple years ago, it was a lot worse. I promise you that. Everybody, auto approvals, the scoring models, but they were, you could get some pretty big loans for, not having that strong a credit. It almost felt like back in the 08 timeline or 05 to 08, when, people were just buying homes with, zero credit, and then everybody, those subprime loans, it was ridiculous, right? Same thing, similar, in automotive, but I mean, not to those extent, but still, you saw credit tightening because customers that had 700 credit scores, that had good history, good income, wouldn't get approved for some cars for over 100 grand. And you look at them like, man, this guy makes good money, good job time, good stability, and he still wouldn't get approved. And you're like, man, that's crazy because the dollar amount of the loan, and because he never qualified for that type of loan in the past, he was stepping up. So maybe in the past his biggest loan amount was 30 grand, and now he's trying to get a Mercedes for 100 grand. He couldn't qualify. Even though his income was there, his credit was there, everything was there, everything that normally 2 years ago he would have just been auto approved and we'd have kept moving, he couldn't get approved.
Well, it's funny to me. I just guess I've seen such a reduction in people trying to do things to like build their credit. So, I mean, I remember the biggest hack back in the day was, go to Rooms to Go and finance furniture because you could get 0%, but it was a line of credit, so you could start building and things like that.
Well, let me rephrase it. He couldn't get approved through that lender. We got him approved through other lenders, but it was just that one lender that basically tightened and we couldn't do it anymore. But go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry about that.
I just think it does, with people like that, though, you are looking at risk. If this is something that somebody's not used to doing, and let's say they're taking out a loan for, let's call it $100,000, right? And say it's a crazy nice S-Class or something. And they haven't taken out a loan before, their highest loan amount's been like 40 grand. I mean, yeah, there's some risk there. Now, if that person had in the past done two $50,000 loans or a 40 and a 60 or whatever, there's not much risk associated because they've proven that debt to income, they can manage that payment. I think a lot of people don't prioritize that now, where they prove payment history, they prove that they can handle the responsibility of having a note and not just let, a car get repoed or say, oh, well, the moment maintenance comes up, we're screwed, don't know what to do.
Yeah. Well, let's, I think we got a little bit more time, and I wanted to kind of throw this one last article that I just read. New York Times 8 minutes ago says oil and gas prices soar after new attacks on Gulf energy sites. What do you think about that, sir? You think are we in for an EV frenzy again, or a hybrid frenzy? What do you think? Do the dealers need to stock up on EVs and hybrids?
It's twofold, right? I think short term, yeah, we may see a lot of people going after EVs and going out to make that purchase, but we are seeing all these tax credits fall off and incentive programs go away. So that's a little confusing because you would think the opposite would happen. But at the same time, with this Gulf oil being shut off, well, so then wouldn't that apply to every other country? So maybe that makes the U.S. the dominant leader in oil?
Possibly, now that we have, other sources of oil, right? And we have full control of those other places. But I think for me, I'm not going to go out there and just start, buying all kinds of EVs or hybrids. I'm going to buy what's turning fast right now and just playing and just, working it day by day. In automotive, you can't be buying 100 cars, used cars, just because you saw a quick shift. You got to gradually buy into it. The worst mistake to do is go out and buy 100 cars at auction or anywhere and overpay them for them in trying to anticipate and time the market. I think your best bet is just go buy what your inventory can withstand and get the quick movers and make sure you have a plan for that. But outside of that, this oil, I mean, we've lived through it a couple of times now, right? I mean, I remember when Priuses were selling for like $5,000 over sticker.
I think it's pre-I.
What's that?
Is it pre-I when it's plural?
Man, I'm not that smart, sir. So my apologies.
I need an answer on that. We need to figure it out.
I don't know. It's crazy. I worked for Toyota for 10 years, over 10 years probably, and I've never heard anyone say pre-I. It was always Prius.
Okay, Prius is all right. I've got it. Then that's how it's going to be. If that's how Toyota says it, that's how I'm going to say it.
Well, maybe they didn't want to correct me. When I was with Porsche, they did correct me, and when I'd say Porsche, it was Porsche. And so, you know, hey, I try to, when someone corrects me, I try to get it fixed, but you
Yeah.
know, sometimes sometimes I just don't know, sir. So, but yeah, I think gas prices, you think it's going to be long term, short term? You think this is going to be a forever thing like we did last time when we went and had some kind of conflict going?
No, I think this is going to be super. Just looking
We hope, we
at it
pray, right?
statistically, I just
Whatever political side that you're on, to me, I look at it just from the economics, from oil, and don't get me wrong, the people that are going through this is sad. I'd hate to be in that position where having our family uprooted and things like that. But it's a tough deal. I don't know any of it. I'm kind of ignorant to all of that. But what I am and what I should try to keep a good understanding of is how do we perform in a market where things like this happen. And so, you do the basics, the blocking and the tackling, and those are the tried and true methods that have gotten me through every downturn. And that's what you focus on. And, most people when the streets are bloody, they say that's when you can make the most money. And because a lot of people are going to pull back and say, oh, no, this is kind of scary. Let's not do anything, and that shouldn't stop you from moving forward. You still should be trying to find the deals because it doesn't matter if it's a down market or an up market. The best always seem to do really, really good. And I'd rather, Grant Cardone says it. I'd rather fail forward than in retreat. And sometimes, and of course, someone's going to say something like, "Well, I'm gonna devil's advocate or whatever," but I'm personally a driver. I definitely like to live in a space that if there's opportunity, I'm going to go after it. So, what are your thoughts?
yeah, I think right now the key thing is just not to react emotionally to what's going on in the world. I think you know what a, using data rather than emotion, I think, is always a successful strategy, especially whenever things are uncertain, right? When buyers are uncertain, when we're uncertain about gas prices and what car is going to be better to keep on the lot, new or used, financial situations, people's credit, repos being high. I mean, these are all things that you could react very emotionally to and make a really bad decision and get yourself in a deeper hole. But if you can weather the storm and not freak out, I think everybody's going to do just fine.
I agree. And I think, everything we kind of talked about today was kind of like that the consumer standpoint, right? What is from the FTC, disposable engines, talking about, you know, extended terms, and then we kind of threw in a couple rage bait things. So, it was a little, consistent across the board of what we were talking about. And to kind of recap everything, what do you think? How do you tie this up into a nice little bow and get our audience to get some real value from this?
I really think it's a great example of how much uncertainty there is and how fluid this industry has become, especially in this day and age where technology just disperses information to all four corners instantly. Where you see the engines blowing up, you see people in their financial situations, you see people online who are profiting off of it and making the best or worst of it, depending on what side of the coin you're on. And I think it's just a matter of, again, not reacting so emotionally and saying, you know what are we doing good today? And how do we focus on that? What is working for us? What has always worked for us? And how do we continue that forward instead of saying, hey, we're going to react to these, micro indicators in the market or across the industry, and you just screw yourself up. Don't be your own enemy.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I'll tell you some reasons why. I remember sometimes when what do they say? What looks like a duck quacks like a duck. It's probably a duck, right? And so sometimes you can get caught up in that position where it looks like a really good deal, right? And so, yes, I want you to make sure you look at data, all that, but at the end of the day, still understand there's still that gut feeling you need to have around certain things that, it's telling you something for a reason. So be extra aware and kind of go in understanding your the surroundings, the economics, all of that. But at the end of the day, you still got to use your gut, because I
It's
think some people can get burned pretty quickly if they overanalyze things. But in either way, like in good or bad, like I've seen some people, overanalyze it and they talk themselves into it, and then or they overanalyze it and they talk themselves out of it. And if you just know that that's an opportunity, you see these certain specialty cars and their deal and you can't replace it, you just need to get it. And some people just they I get it, being cautious and all that, but sometimes you just got to make sure that you have confidence in what you're doing, and you make those decisions pretty decisively.
cautious optimism.
Yeah.
I mean, the best way to live life, optimistic within reason, and go off that. But one thing I will add that I think can rage bait and all the things we've talked about is the best piece of advice I think I ever got in business was whenever you implement something, it usually takes about 6 months for you to see the results of it. So today, if you react emotionally to something and say, well, we're not buying inventory or this type of inventory because this post said this or the industry is doing this today, but traditionally it's always worked. Well, in 6 months, you're going to see the difference of making that decision. So ask yourself, is this a 6-month problem for the industry? Are gas prices a 6-month problem? Are these loans a 6-month problem, or are we going to see a resolution before then?
And I agree 100%. Here's another one. So I remember during the last gas crisis that we had, I remember when Prius were going over, sticker 5-10 grand, and one of the general managers at the store, the group that I was at, he went ahead and just bought a bunch of them, right? And thinking, man, these things, we can sell them and make all the money. Well, then a couple months later, all of a sudden, those Prius weren't bringing that much, and he was holding on to the price too high for too long. And then now he's upside down in all of them, and he's like, what do I do with all of these things? So you definitely don't want to get it stuck in a trick bag like that. Just definitely, if you're going to move on certain models, as long as they're turning fast today, don't oversupply yourself. Get enough to be in the game, because it can turn ugly pretty quickly. But I will tell you that last time this happened, everybody started trading out of their trucks and getting cars.
Trucks got really cheap. Right now is the time to buy.
Trucks got really, really cheap. And then the pricing, I think we ended up cutting all the prices, all the trucks, couple grand at CarMax, I remember. And then we raised the prices of all the sedans. Like it seemed like
I'm sure that's whenever I actually bought my truck was whenever it did downturn.
Yeah, it was a real thing. Like trucks that were normally 30 grand, people came in and they were like 18 grand, which was kind of crazy. So yeah, those are things you got to keep aware of. So don't, like, if you're looking at those big trucks at auction right now, just be cautious. Don't oversupply yourself. Get a couple of them here and there. Don't just go ham and just say, you know what, we're going to do it just because it's March. Because right now the used car market prices are holding pretty strong. Cox just said they're strong, but the supply is still tight. I think it's like a 42-day supply right now. So you definitely need to be aware of all this stuff to make good decisions.
It's going to get interesting.
It is. All right. Well, that wraps up our show today. We hopefully you got some value out of it. Where can they follow you at, Zach, and us? They can follow us on YouTube, right? The Automotive Performance. Check out our website, but they can check you out on YouTube and LinkedIn and everywhere, right?
Yeah, you as well.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, it's great talking as always. If you guys get value on it, like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you again next week. Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.